Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
It was April in the year 1888. Alfred Nobel sat at his desk in Paris. The morning light came in through tall windows. On his desk lay a newspaper. The words on the front page were large and dark. The headline read, Le marchand de la mort est mort. This meant, the merchant of death is dead. The article below it said that Alfred Nobel, who made much money from weapons, had died yesterday. But Alfred Nobel was not dead. He was very much alive, holding the newspaper. It was his brother, Ludwig, who had passed away the day before. A French news company had made a big error. They had confused the two brothers, printing the wrong name. Alfred read the sad words again. His hands shook a little. He was not afraid, but he felt a deep sorrow. He saw clearly how the world would remember him. His life's work would be seen only through destruction. He would be called the merchant of death. People would not remember the good uses of his inventions, like building roads or tunnels. They would not remember him as a clever chemist. This newspaper showed him the harsh story history had written for him. This shocking mistake changed Alfred's way of thinking forever. Reading his own death notice and seeing his future reputation planted a seed in his mind. He wanted to secretly change this future. He began to think about a big, new plan for his money and his name. He did not fully understand this plan yet. It would take 7 more years to truly take shape. This idea would, in time, lead to the creation of the most famous award in the world. But to truly understand this great award, we must first go back in time. We need to learn about the sad events that shaped Alfred Nobel. We must understand the tragedy that created the man once called the Merchant of Death. 2. The Young Chemist. Alfred Nobel was born in Stockholm, Sweden in 1833. His father, Emanuel, was an engineer. The Nobel family loved engineering, especially building underwater mines for the Swedish military. However, the military often paid late or not enough. So in 1837, Alfred's family moved to St. Petersburg, Russia. Alfred was 4 years old. His mother, Andriette, and his brothers, Robert, Ludwig, and Emil, went with him. In Russia, Alfred's father found more work. His mines sold well to the Tsar's army. The Nobel family, which had struggled with money, slowly became wealthy. Alfred was often sick as a child. He was taught at home by private teachers. By age 16, Alfred spoke 5 languages. He was also very good at chemistry. In 1850, Alfred went to Paris to study chemistry. There he met Ascanio Sobrero, an Italian chemist. Sobrero had recently made a major discovery, a very dangerous liquid explosive called pyroglycerin. To make it, Sobrero mixed a thick oil called glycerol with strong acids. The result was a thick yellow liquid that was incredibly unstable. It would explode from just a small bump or friction. Sobrero was terrified of his own invention. He kept it secret for over a year. When he finally shared it, he warned everyone strongly. He said this liquid was not a tool, but a demon. He explained it could not be moved or handled safely. Sobrero even had scars on his face from an accident with it. He often regretted making the compound and worried about the deaths it would cause. But Alfred Nobel saw a great chance, not just danger. He knew gunpowder was weak. This new liquid was far more powerful. If he could control its wild nature, it could change the world. It could help dig tunnels through mountains and clear land for roads. This could make his family's engineering business strong and safe. Despite Sobrero's warnings and his scarred face, Alfred believed he could tame the demon. He wanted to make this uncontrollable substance useful. This choice set the stage for dangerous events. 3. The terrible accident. The Nobel family moved back to Stockholm in 1859. Alfred's father, Emanuel, wanted to make nitroglycerin, known as blasting oil. He set up a small factory outside Stockholm. Alfred and his younger brother Emil worked there. They experimented with the extremely dangerous liquid, trying to make it safer. They hoped it could be used for construction. In 1863, Alfred had a small success. He learned how to make pure nitroglycerin explode in a controlled way, using a special copper cap. He thought he was learning to control the wild substance, but the risks were still very high. The family knew the dangers, yet they were determined. They believed this powerful oil would help build tunnels and roads faster than ever. Then came a terrible day. On September 3rd, 1864, a massive explosion tore through the factory. The building was destroyed, and several workers died. Alfred's youngest brother, Emil, only 20 years old, was in the lab. He died in the blast, buried under the wreckage. Alfred was not there, but the news brought him immense sorrow. Alfred felt deep sadness and a heavy sense of guilt. His brother had died because of his work, because of this dangerous invention. But instead of giving up, Alfred decided to continue. He felt that Emil's death could not be meaningless. He had to succeed, to make his brother's sacrifice worthwhile. This made him even more focused, almost obsessed with his work. The city authorities in Stockholm were alarmed by the explosion and the deaths. They banned Alfred from making nitroglycerin inside the city limits. So Alfred had to move. He took his laboratory to a large boat, a barge, on Lake Mälaren. He worked there alone, far from people and houses. It was a strange sight. People called him the mad alchemist on the water, surrounded by the most explosive liquid on Earth. He worked day and night, testing new ideas. He tried mixing the oil with different materials, like sawdust and charcoal.
nothing worked perfectly. One day, while on his lonely barge, he had a crazy idea. What if he mixed the dangerous liquid with a special kind of dirt? He wondered if this fine, porous earth could finally tame the demon liquid. 4. The power of clay. Alfred worked on his barge, trying many different materials. He mixed nitroglycerin with them. One day, he found a fine, light earth called kieselguhr. It was made from countless tiny fossil shells. He decided to mix 3 parts of liquid nitroglycerin with 1 part of this porous earth. Something truly amazing happened in his hands. The wild liquid demon changed its form. It became a soft paste, very much like clay. This new substance was much safer than liquid nitroglycerin. It would not explode if it was dropped. It would not explode even if it was vibrated strongly. Alfred could easily shape it into sticks, making it practical for use. He called this powerful new invention dynamite. The name meant power in ancient Greek, fitting for its strength. Dynamite allowed workers to make tunnels through hard mountains and dig long canals safely, making big projects possible. But dynamite alone was not the most important part of his discovery. Alfred had another invention, less famous but just as vital, the blasting cap. Without this tiny device, dynamite was almost useless.
Liquid nitroglycerin exploded, but not always when or how you wanted it to. It was unpredictable and dangerous. The blasting cap solved this problem completely. It was a very small copper tube. Inside, it held a tiny amount of mercury fulminate, which was another explosive, but much more stable than nitroglycerin. Alfred placed this cap inside the dynamite stick. When a simple fuse lit the cap, the mercury fulminate detonated with a sharp shock. This small, controlled explosion then immediately set off the much larger dynamite explosion. The blasting cap allowed people to time explosions perfectly and make them fully effective. It changed nitroglycerin's wild power into controlled force. Alfred believed these powerful new tools would change the world for the better. He thought they would make all wars stop forever. He strongly argued that if weapons became too terrible and destructive, no one would dare to fight another war. This idea was similar to how people later thought about very powerful nuclear weapons, believing their existence would prevent global conflict. Alfred truly believed his inventions would bring lasting peace because war would simply be too horrible to imagine. Was he truly right in this hopeful belief? Or was he, deep down, simply trying to convince himself and others to sleep at night? The true answer to this question was not clear, even to Alfred himself. 5. The two women. By the year 1870, Alfred Nobel was a very rich man. He owned many factories across Europe and America. But with all his money, Alfred was still very lonely. His heart felt empty, a quiet sadness away from the loud explosions of his work. In 1876, Alfred looked for a secretary. Sophie Hess, a woman from Vienna, answered his advertisement. She was a widow and needed money. At first, Alfred wrote her many loving letters. He missed her when he traveled. He wanted her to be his companion. But over time, their relationship changed. Alfred became jealous and controlling. Sophie seemed not to care much for him. Their time together became more like a business deal, where Alfred paid for her company, but there was no true closeness. This relationship lasted for 14 years and showed how lonely Alfred truly was. He could buy many things, but not real love. In the same year, another woman came to work for Alfred, Bertha von Suttner. Bertha was from an important family in Austria. She was much more educated and liked to talk about big ideas. Unlike Sophie, Bertha did not just take Alfred's money, she challenged his thoughts. Bertha believed strongly in peace and ending all wars. She told Alfred, the man who made weapons, that he was wrong. She thought people should stop fighting. Bertha left Alfred's work quite soon, but they kept writing letters to each other for many years.
They talked about philosophy, peace, war, and if a world without fighting was possible. Bertha wrote a famous book in 1889 called Lay Down Your Arms. This book spoke against war. Alfred read it. Bertha's strong ideas about peace began to affect him deeply. He often said his weapons would make war too terrible to fight, so it would stop. But Bertha's words were like a small seed in his mind, slowly growing. Soon, a new invention by Alfred would cause big trouble. In 1887, he created a new type of gunpowder called ballistatite. France, where Alfred lived, did not want to buy it. So in 1889, Alfred sold the idea to Italy. This made France very angry, and would soon turn his adopted country against him completely. 6. The Man with No Home. Alfred Nobel made a new invention in 1887. It was a powerful kind of gunpowder named ballistatite. This powder did not make smoke, which made it very useful for military guns. The French government, where Alfred lived, decided they did not want to buy it. But another country, Italy, showed great interest in this new technology. So in 1889, Alfred made a deal and sold the rights to his invention to Italy. The Italian army quickly started using ballistatite in their rifles. This decision made the French people and their newspapers extremely angry. They saw it as a terrible betrayal. They accused Alfred of being a spy and a traitor. They said he was selling French military secrets for his own profit. For many decades, Alfred had made Paris his home. He had built his life and his work there. But now he was called an outcast. He was no longer welcome in the country he had loved and lived in for so long. In 1891, Alfred was forced to leave France. He moved to San Remo, a beautiful city on the coast of Italy. He would spend his last 5 years there, living in exile. It felt like he had no true home, rejected by the nation he had adopted. During these final years, Alfred's health was getting worse. His heart was weak and he often felt pain. He knew his time was short. He thought back to the shocking newspaper article from 1888. It had called him the Merchant of Death. Now, hated by France and with his body failing, it seemed this sad prophecy was coming true. He was a rich man, but very alone. Alfred Nobel had about 1 year left to live. He had built a massive fortune from his inventions. His family, especially his relatives, were waiting to inherit his wealth. But Alfred had a secret plan, a last act that would change how the world remembered him. In November 1895, he sat down at his desk. He began to write a very important document that no one expected. This paper was his will, and it would shock his family and the whole world. Chapter 7. The Secret Will.
In November of 1895, Alfred Nobel sat down to write his last will. He decided not to ask a lawyer for help. This was a very important document that would change how he was remembered. Alfred made a surprising choice. He left only small amounts of money to his family members. They expected much more. Instead, Alfred created 5 new prizes. These prizes would be given every year to people who did great things for mankind. The biggest surprise was the Peace Prize. People were shocked. Alfred Nobel was known as the Merchant of Death because he made powerful explosives. Now he wanted to reward those who worked for peace. He believed these prizes would encourage people to do good work. Alfred died on December the 10th, 1896. After his death, his family quickly learned about the will. They were very upset. They had hoped to get most of his large fortune. Alfred's nephews, like Hjalmar and Ludwig, received some money, but it was not much compared to the total wealth. The Swedish king, Oscar II, also did not like the will. He thought Alfred's money should stay in Sweden and not be given to people from other countries. The family and the king wanted to stop the will from becoming real. They argued that it was not written correctly. This meant a big fight in court was coming. Alfred's young assistant, Ragnar Solman, had a very important and dangerous task. He was named one of the people who would make sure the will happened. Solman knew that the French government might try to take Alfred's money and papers. Alfred had lived in France for a long time, and many of his assets were there. Solman had to act fast and secretly. He gathered all the important documents and securities that held Alfred's fortune. He packed them carefully into crates. Then Ragnar Solman loaded the crates onto a carriage. He left Paris and began a long journey to Sweden. He traveled with a revolver, keeping a close eye on the precious cargo. He was guarding the money that would fund the future Nobel Prizes. It was like a secret mission to save Alfred's last wish. Finally, Solman brought the fortune safely to Sweden. The money was now out of reach of the French courts. But the legal arguments were not over. The family and the king were still trying to stop Alfred's secret will. A long fight to make the Nobel Prizes happen was just beginning. 8. The Price of Peace. The first Nobel Prize ceremony took place in 1901. This important event happened 5 years after Alfred Nobel's death. He did not live to see this day, a day that would forever change how the world remembered him. During his lifetime, Alfred Nobel was called the Merchant of Death. He had even read his own incorrect obituary with this title. But his last wish, written in his will, worked. He successfully rewrote his own story.
Now, people remember him for the prestigious prizes he created, not for the powerful explosives. His hope had come true. He used his fortune to help humanity, changing a difficult legacy into something positive. This was his final effort to find a kind of peace for himself. However, there is a deep irony. The Nobel Prizes, especially the Peace Prize, are funded by money made from explosives. Alfred Nobel became very rich because his inventions, like dynamite, were effective. They were used in mining and construction, but also, tragically, in conflicts and for destruction. So the money that rewards peacemakers and scientists came from making war and powerful tools more efficient. Alfred Nobel made a big wager. He hoped the good his money could do would be greater than the harm his inventions caused. He believed that even if he could not stop wars, he could support those who tried to build peace. He could not take back his inventions or stop them from being used in war, but he chose how his immense wealth would be used after he was gone. This story leaves us with an important question about human nature. Can we ever truly fix our past mistakes? Can money earned from destruction truly buy a better future? Alfred Nobel tried to answer these questions, making a strong statement about humanity's potential for both destruction and creation. He showed that peace, like science, deserves to be actively built and rewarded. What do you think?
Can good intentions, at the end, truly overcome the difficult consequences of past actions?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world,